A retired firefighter returns to an abandoned subway station in Chicago, expecting nothing more than a routine inspection, until he uncovers a sealed tunnel no one ever reported. What he finds hidden behind that wall reveals a truth buried for over 20 years, and a voice that was never meant to be heard. Subscribe for more powerful stories, and tell us in the comments, would you uncover the truth? Or leave it buried? Lucas Blackwood swore he would never come back. Not after that night. Not after what the city buried beneath concrete, paperwork, and silence. But when the official notice arrived, demolition scheduled, no delays, no investigations, he felt it. That same weight pressing against his chest like a warning he could no longer ignore. The Ashford subway station had been closed for over 20 years, labeled a structural failure. A tragic accident. That's what they told the public. Lucas knew it was a lie. He had been one of the first responders. He had heard the calls cut off mid-sentence. The echoes that didn't sound like collapsing metal, but like people. Now, standing at the rusted entrance beneath the cold Chicago wind, his breath slowed. The city had moved on. Everyone had. But something down there hadn't. The gate resisted when he pushed it open, screaming against the hinges like it didn't want to be disturbed. Dust filled the air as his flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a station frozen in time. No footsteps. No movement. And yet, it didn't feel empty. Lucas took a step forward. Because deep down, he understood something terrifying. If he didn't go back in now, whatever was waiting in that tunnel would stay hidden forever. Lucas Blackwood moved deeper into the station, each step echoing louder than it should have, as if the silence itself was listening. He had one job. A final inspection before demolition crews came in and erased this place for good. No reports. No questions. Just confirm it was empty. But nothing about this felt empty. His flashlight flickered as he passed the old platform. Rusted rails stretched into darkness, and broken tiles crunched beneath his boots. The air grew colder the further he went, thick and stale, like it hadn't been disturbed in years. Then he saw it. At the far end of the tunnel, past a collapsed support beam that wasn't in any official report, there was something wrong. A wall. Smooth. Gray. Solid. Concrete. Lucas stopped. His pulse slowed, then spiked. That shouldn't be there. He had memorized these tunnels years ago. Every exit. Every maintenance corridor. Every emergency route. This section, this exact stretch, should have led to an auxiliary passage connecting to the lower service lines. But now, it was sealed. Not aged. Not crumbling. Sealed clean. Deliberately. Why would they block this? He muttered under his breath. He stepped closer, running his fingers along the surface. The concrete was colder than the surrounding walls. And smoother. Too smooth for something done 2 decades ago. Then his light caught something near the edge. Scratches. Faint. Uneven. Lucas leaned in, heart beginning to pound. He brushed away a layer of dust and froze. Marks. Not random. Letters. Carved from the inside. His breath caught in his throat as the beam of light revealed them fully. Help me. The words weren't old and faded like everything else down here. They were preserved. Protected by the very wall that had hidden them. Lucas staggered back a step. No. No, that's not possible. The official report said everyone had been evacuated. Counted. Cleared. No missing persons. No unresolved cases. But those words. They told a different story. A story no one was supposed to find. His radio crackled suddenly, the static exploding in the silence. Blackwood, you copy? A voice broke through. Lucas flinched, grabbing the device. Yeah. I'm here. You done yet? Demo crews moving in tomorrow. Don't spend too long down there. Lucas glanced back at the wall. At the message. At the truth clawing its way out from behind concrete. Almost, he replied, his voice tighter than he intended. The radio clicked off. But Lucas didn't move. Because now he noticed something else. Near the base of the wall. Barely visible beneath years of dust. A narrow seam. A line where the concrete didn't quite meet the original structure. Like it had been poured over something. Or worse. Someone. His stomach turned. This wasn't just a sealed tunnel. This was a cover-up. And suddenly, the past didn't feel distant anymore. It felt immediate. Dangerous. Because if someone had gone to this much effort to hide what was behind that wall, then they were hiding more than just a mistake. Lucas stepped back slowly, eyes locked on the message. Every instinct told him to walk away. File the report. Let the demolition crews bury it for good. That's what the city expected. That's what everyone else had done. 20 years ago. But Lucas couldn't unsee it. Couldn't unknow it. Because somewhere behind that wall, someone had begged to be heard. And no one had listened. Until now. He tightened his grip on the flashlight, jaw clenching as a decision formed, heavy, irreversible. If he broke that wall open, there would be no going back. But if he didn't, the truth would die here. Forever. Lucas took a slow breath. Then reached for the rusted maintenance tools lying nearby. Lucas didn't remember deciding to do it. 1 second he was standing there, staring at the words carved into the wall. The next, he was swinging the rusted crowbar with everything he had. The sound cracked through the tunnel like a gunshot. Metal against concrete. Again. And again. Each strike echoed violently, bouncing off the walls as if the station itself was protesting. Dust began to fall. Fine at first. Then thicker, choking the air. Come on. Lucas gritted his teeth, striking harder. The concrete wasn't as solid as it looked. It gave. Not much, but enough. A thin fracture spidered across the surface. Lucas froze for half a second. Then hit it again. This time, a chunk broke loose. And from the darkness behind it, a breath of air escaped. Cold. Rotten. Trapped. Lucas staggered back, covering his mouth as the smell hit him. Not just decay. But something older. Stagnant. Forgotten. His flashlight trembled in his hand as he leaned closer to the opening. There was space behind the wall. Not just a gap. A hidden chamber. His pulse roared in his ears. No way. He widened the hole, piece by piece, until it was just big enough to squeeze through. For a moment, he hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to stop. But something stronger pulled him forward. Truth. He ducked and stepped inside. The beam of his flashlight cut through the darkness. And what it revealed made his blood run cold. The room wasn't natural. It had been part of the original tunnel. Then cut off. A small maintenance space, barely 10 feet wide. And it hadn't been empty. A rusted folding chair sat in the corner. A blanket, thin, worn, lay crumpled on the ground. Empty water bottles. Old food wrappers. Signs of life. Not for a few hours. Not for a day. But for weeks. Lucas's chest tightened. Someone had been here. Alive. Trapped. He turned slowly, scanning the room. And then he saw it. Scratches on the wall. Dozens of them. Tallies. Counting days. His breath caught. Whoever had been in here. They hadn't died immediately. They had waited. Hoped. Until hope ran out. Jesus, Lucas whispered. Then. A sound. A faint click beneath his boot. He looked down. Something small, half buried in dust. He knelt, brushing it off with shaking hands. A cassette recorder. Old. Worn. But intact. His fingers hesitated over the play button. For a moment, the entire world felt like it was holding its breath. Then. He pressed it. Static filled the air. Loud. Harsh. Then. A voice. Weak. Hoarse. Desperate. If anyone finds this. My name is Marcus Hale. Lucas froze. They said it was an accident. But it wasn't. They knew the tunnel was unstable. They knew. The voice broke, coughing violently. I tried to warn them. I tried to report it. But they shut me down. Said I was risking the project. Costing them money. Lucas's heart pounded harder with every word. Then the collapse happened. And they found me. Still alive. A pause. Breathing. Ragged. They said they'd come back. Told me to stay here. Said it wasn't safe yet. Lucas clenched his jaw. He already knew what came next. But no one ever came. Silence swallowed the recording for a few seconds. Then, barely audible. If you're hearing this, don't believe them. This wasn't an accident. Click. The tape stopped. Lucas sat there, unmoving. The weight of it crushing down on him. This man, Marcus. He hadn't died in the collapse. He had been left here. Abandoned. Buried alive behind a wall. By the very people who caused it. Lucas's hands trembled as he looked around the room again. At the chair. The blanket. The marks counting down the final days of a man no one came back for. And suddenly, everything changed. This wasn't just a forgotten tragedy. This was murder. Covered up. Hidden. Erased. Lucas slowly stood, gripping the recorder like it was evidence. Like it was a voice that refused to stay silent. Because now he understood something terrifying. If he walked away. If he let the demolition crews come in tomorrow. They wouldn't just destroy this place. They would destroy the truth. And Marcus Hale would disappear again. This time. Forever. Lucas couldn't breathe. Not because of the air. But because of the truth pressing down on him from every direction. He replayed the tape. Again. They found me. Still alive. Each word hit harder the second time. Then the third. By the fourth, it wasn't just a recording anymore. It was a confession. A death sentence spoken in slow motion. Lucas staggered back, running a hand through his hair, his mind racing to keep up. This didn't make sense. It couldn't. The official report had been clear, clean, final, unquestioned. Structural failure. Casualties accounted for. No survivors left behind. He had signed off on that report. His name was on it. I checked. He muttered, voice shaking. We checked everything. But the room around him told a different story. A man had been here. Alive. Waiting. And Lucas had walked away. The realization hit like a physical blow. He dropped to one knee, staring at the tally marks carved into the wall. 1, 2, 3. Dozens. Each line a day Marcus Hale had stayed alive. Each line a day Lucas hadn't come back. I didn't know, he whispered. But the words felt hollow the moment they left his mouth. Because deep down, he remembered something. That night. The chaos. The radio interference. And one call. Faint. Broken. Still here. Lucas's eyes widened. He had heard it. He had dismissed it. Written it off as static. A glitch. A dying signal bouncing off collapsing tunnels. Because that was easier. Because protocol said the area was unstable. Because command told them to pull back. And Lucas. He followed orders. His chest tightened painfully. This wasn't just them, he said under his breath. It wasn't just the officials. The cover-up. The lies. It was him. He had been part of it. Not by choice. Not knowingly. But by silence. By obedience. By walking away when something didn't feel right. Lucas slowly stood, the weight of that truth settling deep into his bones. For 20 years, he had told himself it was out of his hands. That he did his job. That he saved who he could. But standing in that room. Looking at the evidence of a man abandoned. He knew that wasn't enough. It had never been enough. His gaze drifted back to the recorder in his hand. Marcus's voice. Still fighting. Still refusing to disappear. And suddenly, something shifted inside him. This wasn't just about exposing a secret anymore. This was about responsibility. About the moment you realize the past isn't finished with you. Because you never finished with it. Lucas exhaled slowly, steadier now. No more denial. No more distance. If the city buried the truth. He had helped dig the grave. And now. He was the only one left who could unearth it. The radio crackled again, sharper this time. Blackwood, status? Lucas didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned the room one last time. The chair. The marks. The silence that had lasted 20 years too long. Then he lifted the radio. His voice was different now. Not uncertain. Not hesitant. Change of report, he said firmly. This site isn't clear. A pause. What are you talking about? Lucas tightened his grip on the recorder. There's evidence down here. Someone was left behind. Silence. Longer this time. Then. That's not possible. Finish your inspection and get out. Lucas's jaw clenched. That tone. He recognized it. Dismissive. Controlled. The same tone that had buried this place 20 years ago. Only now. He wasn't the same man who would follow it. No, Lucas said quietly. Then louder. I'm not leaving. Another pause. But this one felt different. Heavier. Dangerous. Blackwood. You don't understand what you're getting into. Lucas looked back at the sealed wall. Now broken open. At the truth finally exposed. And for the first time in 20 years. He wasn't afraid of it. You're right, he said. I didn't. His grip tightened. But I do now. He lowered the radio slowly. Because in that moment, Lucas understood something that changed everything. This wasn't just about what happened back then. This was about what someone, somewhere, was still trying to keep buried. And if they were still trying to silence it, then this story wasn't over. Lucas climbed out of the hidden chamber with shaking hands, but a steady mind. For the first time since he stepped into that station, he knew exactly what he had to do. This wasn't just evidence. It was a chance. A chance to correct something that had been wrong for 20 years. But as he stepped back onto the platform, the weight of reality hit him just as hard as the truth had. People didn't just cover up something like this. And then forget about it. They protected it. And if Marcus Hale had been silenced once, anyone trying to bring his story back could be next. Lucas looked down at the recorder in his hand. It felt heavier now. Not because of its weight. But because of what it carried. A voice. A witness. Proof. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Lucas stared at the screen for a second. Then answered. Yeah? A pause. Then a voice, low, controlled. You shouldn't be down there. Lucas's grip tightened. Who is this? You already know enough to leave, the voice replied. Take your report, mark it clear, and walk away. Lucas let out a slow breath. There it was. Not denial. Not confusion. A warning. I found the chamber, Lucas said, his voice calm but firm. I found the recordings. Silence. Then. A shift in tone. Colder. Sharper. Then you've made a mistake. The line went dead. Lucas lowered the phone slowly. That wasn't just a threat. That was confirmation. Everything Marcus said was real. And whatever network had buried this was still active. Still watching. Still protecting itself. For a moment, doubt crept in. He could still walk away. File a basic report. Say the structure was unstable. Let demolition crews come in tomorrow and wipe everything clean. No risk. No consequences. No more ghosts. But then, Marcus's voice echoed in his mind. Don't believe them. Lucas closed his eyes. 20 years ago, he had chosen safety. Chosen orders. Chosen silence. And a man died because of it. Not this time. His eyes opened, clear, focused. He pulled out his phone again, scrolling through his contacts until he found a name he hadn't called in years. Rachel Bennett. Investigative journalist. Relentless. The kind of person who didn't let things go, no matter how deep they were buried. The line rang once. Twice. Then. Lucas? Her voice came through, surprised. I haven't heard from you in, what, a decade. Lucas didn't waste time. I found something, he said. A pause. You always do, she replied lightly. What kind of something? Lucas glanced back toward the tunnel. Toward the broken wall. Toward the truth clawing its way into the light. The kind that people tried to bury, he said quietly. Silence. Then her tone changed. Serious now. Talk to me. Lucas took a breath. 20 years ago, the Ashford collapse wasn't an accident. Someone survived. They sealed him in and left him there. On the other end of the line. Nothing. No jokes. No skepticism. Just attention. You have proof? Rachel asked. Lucas looked at the recorder in his hand. Yeah, he said. I do. Another pause. Then. I'm on my way. The call ended. Lucas slipped the phone back into his pocket, a strange calm settling over him. For the first time, he wasn't alone in this. But he also knew. The moment Rachel stepped into this story. There was no turning back. No quiet ending. No safe outcome. Because once the truth started moving, it didn't stop. Lucas turned toward the station exit, the faint light above flickering like a warning. Or a signal. Outside, the city moved like nothing had changed. Cars passed. People walked. Life continued. But beneath it all, something had shifted. A story buried for decades was about to surface. And the people who buried it? They wouldn't stay silent this time. Lucas stepped into the cold Chicago air, gripping the recorder tighter. This was no longer just about the past. This was about what came next. Because the truth didn't just give you answers. It gave you consequences. And Lucas had just chosen to face all of them. Lucas didn't go home that night. He couldn't. Sleep felt like something reserved for people who hadn't just uncovered a man buried alive beneath a city that chose to forget him. Instead, he sat in his truck across the street from the station, engine off, hands resting on the steering wheel. Unmoving. The recorder lay on the passenger seat. Silent. But louder than anything he'd heard in years. Every word Marcus had spoken kept replaying in his mind, not just the fear. But the betrayal. They said they'd come back. Lucas shut his eyes tightly. That sentence broke something in him. Because once upon a time, he was one of the people Marcus had trusted to come back. And he hadn't. The guilt he had buried for 2 decades. It wasn't gone. It had just been waiting. Waiting for him to finally stop running. A knock on the window jolted him back. Lucas turned sharply. Rachel Bennett stood outside, coat pulled tight against the cold, her expression already searching for answers. He unlocked the door. She got in without a word, eyes immediately landing on the recorder. That it? She asked. Lucas nodded. Rachel picked it up carefully, like it might break, or like she already understood its weight. Play it, she said. Lucas hesitated for half a second. Then pressed the button. The static filled the truck. Then Marcus's voice. By the time the recording ended, Rachel wasn't looking at Lucas anymore. She was staring straight ahead. Processing. Calculating. This is big, she said finally. Lucas let out a quiet breath. It's worse than that. She turned to him. What aren't you saying? Lucas's jaw tightened. For a moment, he considered holding it back. But that was the old version of him. The one who stayed quiet. I was there that night, he said. Rachel's expression shifted instantly. What? I was part of the rescue team. His voice was steady, but heavier now. We pulled people out. We ran sweeps. And then, We left. Lucas. I heard something, he cut in. A call. Weak. Fading. I told myself it was nothing. Interference. But it wasn't. Silence filled the truck again. This time, heavier than before. You think that was him? Rachel said quietly. Lucas nodded. I know it was. The words didn't shake this time. They landed. Final. Rachel studied him for a long moment, not judging, but understanding the weight of what he had just admitted. You didn't know, she said. Lucas let out a hollow breath. I didn't want to know. That was the truth. And saying it out loud felt like tearing something open inside him. But instead of breaking him, it cleared something. For the first time in years, Lucas wasn't hiding behind excuses. Not protocol. Not orders. Not fear. Just truth. Raw. Uncomfortable. Necessary. Rachel nodded slowly. Then this isn't just a story for you, she said. Lucas looked down at his hands. No, he replied. It's not. It was redemption. Not the kind that erases the past, but the kind that refuses to let it stay buried. Rachel leaned back slightly, her voice shifting into something sharper. Then we do this right, she said. No rushing. No mistakes. Because if what's on that tape is real. It is, Lucas said firmly. Then the people behind it won't just sit back and watch us expose them. Lucas nodded. I know. And for the first time, he wasn't intimidated by that. Because fear had already cost him too much. He reached over, taking the recorder back into his hands. His grip was different now. Not hesitant. Not uncertain. Steady. Purposeful. I walked away once, he said quietly. Rachel didn't respond. She didn't need to. Because she could see it in his eyes. The shift. The line that had been crossed. Lucas looked out at the dark entrance of the station across the street. 20 years ago, it had been the place he left something behind. Now, it was the place he was finally going back for it. Not as a rescuer. Not as someone following orders. But as someone choosing to stand his ground. No matter what it cost. Lucas exhaled slowly. I'm not walking away again. And this time, he meant it. The story didn't break overnight. It couldn't. Truth like this, buried deep, protected for decades, doesn't rise quietly. It fights its way up. And so did Lucas. Within days, Rachel's investigation began to surface. Not headlines yet. But whispers. Questions. Old names being pulled from forgotten records. Then came the first article. Survivor left behind? New evidence challenges 20-year-old subway disaster. It spread faster than anyone expected. Calls came in. Former workers. Retired officials. People who had stayed silent for years. Suddenly unsure if they still could. And then, the city responded. Denials. Unverified claims. Misinterpretation of outdated evidence. The same language. The same tone. The same attempt to bury it again. But this time, it didn't work. Because this time, there was a voice. Marcus Hale's voice. And people heard it. Really heard it. Lucas stood beside Rachel as the full recording played publicly for the first time. Not in a courtroom. Not behind closed doors. But out in the open. Where it belonged. The room was silent when it ended. Not the kind of silence that ignores. The kind that understands. That absorbs. That changes something. Lucas didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, staring at the ground, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Not guilt. Not anymore. Something else. Release. Because for the first time, Marcus wasn't alone in that tunnel anymore. People knew. And that mattered. Weeks later, the demolition was officially halted. An investigation was reopened. Names surfaced. Decisions questioned. And the sealed section of the Ashford line The place no one was supposed to find. Was declared a protected site. Not erased. Not hidden. Remembered. Lucas returned one last time. But this time, he didn't go alone. A small group stood with him, Rachel, investigators, and a few quiet witnesses who had come not out of curiosity, but respect. They walked down the same tunnel, past the same broken platform, to the same wall, now fully opened. The chamber no longer felt like a prison. It felt like something else. A place that had finally been seen. Lucas stepped inside slowly, his eyes moving across every detail. The chair. The marks. The space where a man had waited. And been forgotten. He knelt down, placing the recorder gently on the ground. Not as evidence. But as acknowledgement. I came back, he said quietly. No echo this time. No unanswered silence. Just stillness. And something softer beneath it. As if the weight that had lingered here for decades had finally lifted. Lucas stood, taking one last look around. 20 years ago, he had walked away from this place. Today, he walked out differently. Not because the past had changed, but because he had faced it, owned it, and refused to let it stay buried. Outside, the city moved like it always did. Busy, loud, unstoppable. But beneath it, something had shifted. A truth had surfaced. A voice had been heard. And a man who was once forgotten was now remembered. Lucas paused at the top of the stairs, glancing back one final time. Not with regret, but with purpose. Because this was never just about exposing what happened. It was about making sure it never happened again. He turned and stepped into the light. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't carrying the past with him anymore. He had given it a place to rest. The tunnel didn't disappear. It didn't get sealed again. This time, it was opened. Fully. Honestly. Permanently. Weeks after the truth came out, the city made an announcement no one expected. The Ashford Tunnel wouldn't be demolished. It would be preserved. Not as a mistake, but as a memory. At first, people didn't understand. Why keep a place tied to something so dark? Why not erase it? Like before? But when the doors finally opened to the public, everything changed. Lucas stood at the entrance that morning, watching quietly as the first visitors stepped inside. No cameras. No loud voices. Just people. Walking slowly, as if they already felt the weight beneath their feet. The tunnel had been transformed, but not polished. Not sanitized. The cracked tiles were still there. The rusted rails untouched. And at the end, the chamber remained exactly as it had been found. Only now, there was light. Soft. Warm. Not enough to erase the past, but enough to face it. A small plaque stood near the entrance of the chamber. No long explanation. No political statements. Just a single line. For those who were left behind. And finally heard. Lucas didn't move closer right away. He watched as others did. An older man removed his hat. A woman placed her hand gently against the wall. Someone whispered something under their breath, too quiet to hear, but loud enough to matter. They weren't there out of curiosity. They were there to remember. And somehow, that made the space feel different. Not like a place of death, but a place where silence had finally been broken. Rachel stepped beside him, her voice low. "You did this," she said. Lucas shook his head slowly. "No," he replied. "He did." His eyes drifted toward the chamber. Toward the marks on the wall. Toward the space where a voice had waited 20 years to be heard. "I just listened." They walked in together. This time, Lucas didn't hesitate. Didn't feel the fear that once held him back. He stepped into the chamber like someone returning. Not to relive the past, but to honor it. The recorder was no longer on the ground. It rested in a glass case nearby. Protected. Preserved. Marcus Hale's final words looping softly through a hidden speaker, no longer desperate, but remembered. Lucas stood still, letting the sound fill the space. Not haunting. Not anymore. Now. It felt like closure. After a long moment, he reached out and placed his hand gently against the wall where the words had been carved. Help me. They were still there. Untouched. Because they weren't a secret anymore. They were a reminder of what happens when truth is ignored. And what happens when someone finally chooses to face it. Lucas closed his eyes briefly. Not in pain. But in acknowledgement. I didn't come back in time, he whispered. A pause. But I came back. And somehow. That was enough. When he stepped out of the tunnel later that day, the sunlight felt different. Warmer. Lighter. Like something he had carried for years had finally been set down. Behind him, people continued to walk in. One by one. Quiet. Respectful. Present. The tunnel no longer belonged to the past. It belonged to everyone who refused to forget. And Lucas. He didn't see it as a place of tragedy anymore. He saw it as proof that even the deepest silence can be broken. All it takes is one person willing to listen. Some truths don't disappear. They don't fade. They don't die. They wait. Buried beneath time, silence, and the choices people make to look away. For 20 years, the truth about that tunnel stayed hidden, not because it was gone, but because no one was willing to face it. And that's the hardest part to accept. It's not always darkness that keeps the truth buried. Sometimes, it's comfort, fear, or the belief that it's better not to know. But Lucas proved something different. That it only takes one person, just one, to stop walking away. One person to ask questions. To dig deeper. To listen. When everyone else chooses silence. Because the truth doesn't need a crowd. It needs courage. And when that courage shows up, no matter how late, the light always finds a way back in. If this story made you feel something, don't ignore it. Subscribe now for more powerful stories that uncover hidden truths. And tell me in the comments. Would you have opened that tunnel? Or walked away?